villains are important for every story and every movie, and we have a villain problem in Star Wars. That's why this video, of course, is called Star Wars: The Villain Problem. What's up, guys? I'm Star Wars Only. If you like Star Wars, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I try to upload every day. But let's get into the video on what is the villain problem in Star Wars. Well, villains are important in a story, of course. You have good villains like the Joker, who I consider to be the best villain of all time. A lot of people also do that as well. You also have villains like Kaiser Soze, who isn't really... There's tension when you say his name, but he's not really ever there, you know? And then you have other villains like, it's not from a movie, but Madara Uchiha from Naruto. I used to like that series growing up. They very carefully built this villain up, and when he finally came to be, it was amazing. You're like, oh my god, they've been talking about him for all this time, but I've never seen him. It's beautiful. But you also had other villains that were good prior to Madara coming in. So let's get into the problem with the Star Wars villains, because you don't have manga for Star Wars or anything like that. You have the films. You get the original trilogy and you have Darth Vader, your main villain, the best villain, most iconic villain of all time in Star Wars and almost in cinema history. Darth Vader is an imposing figure. He walks on scene, he walks on set, walks into the scene, and he brings some tension into it. He has some gravity to him. It's scary. You don't really know what he's gonna do, and so you need a villain like this who brings tension into it. You didn't have that much with the Emperor when it came to Episode 6, but the reason his was a little better is because they kind of built up to him. They mentioned him a little bit, yes, but also it showed that Vader feared him. Vader talked about him. He bowed to him and everything, and you're like, this is the guy that controls Darth Vader, who, in our minds, is a badass, so how menacing can he be? Palpatine's a very decent villain. Not the best, but I think Vader's a better one, but he's a decent villain. Vader's got the arc to him, he's got the... he challenged Luke, he challenges him on the dark side versus the light side. We learned about stuff like that. It's very interesting. Well, then we get to the prequels, and you have the villains from the prequels, and honestly, none of them are really that memorable or good. I mean, they're memorable because they look cool, but that's about it. They're not good villains, though. Let's look at the Phantom Menace. You have Darth Maul. He is the main villain. Whether you like it or not, you can say it's Palpatine. Darth Maul is the one who fights at the end. Darth Maul's the main villain, and he kind of, what's his motivation? I don't really know. Darth Maul, is just kind of there. Darth Maul comes in, he fights, and that's it. He says he wants to have revenge against the Jedi. Well, for what? What'd they do to you? I don't know why Darth Maul's evil. I don't see him doing anything evil. I'm just basically implied and told that he's the evil guy because he's a Sith Lord. Darth Vader, I saw him blow up a planet and choke a guy. Grand Moff Tarkin was, kind of the guy who did a lot of the blowing up the planets and stuff. But Grand Moff Tarkin even had a menacing part to him. He's like the villain from Quentin Tarantino's Inglourious Bastards. I believe his name is Hans. Hans is a very menacing villain. He's smart, he's educated, he kind of reminds you of Grand Moff Tarkin, and the entire time you see Hans on screen, he's always, he seems knowledgeable, and you're like, does he know? Does he know that the Jews are underneath the, the floor? I mean, does he know that this is the lady that survived it? I mean, there's so many questions that you have going through your mind when you see him. There's tension when Hans is on screen. There's also a little bit of tension when Grand Moff Tarkin's on screen, because it's like, well, what's he gonna do next? He just blew up a planet. So you have that kind of tension. You have the same tension with Darth Vader because you're like, oh my god, he just choked a guy to death and threw him like he was nothing. That's amazing. There's tension in these scenes. There's not a lot of tension when, Darth Maul gets on screen. He's there, he looks cool, and that's it. He's just like, I'll kill the Jedi. Alright, well, good job. I mean, the heroes aren't that great anyways, but he doesn't really challenge the heroes either. Grand Moff Tarkin challenged Leia. Darth Vader challenged Obi-Wan and Luke. So you have that. Then we get to Attack of the Clones. You have Count Dooku, who you don't meet until, like, I don't know, an hour in, maybe 45 minutes in? I can't remember. You don't meet him until later in. You hear about him a little bit, but not that much. You're like, oh, he used to be a Jedi. Well, the villains that you know from, The Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones are, the Trade Federation guys. I don't know why they're villains, but, they're there. I guess they're against trade or something. Well, no, they're against tax routes on... I don't know, Naboo, no one really knows. But still, those guys aren't good villains, they're just kind of little pawns. Why are they still in Attack of the Clones is beyond me. You get Count Dooku, who you're told is a Sith that used to be a Jedi or something, and you're like, oh, okay, but then you don't meet him until far later on. You also have Jango Fett, and what's his motivation?
I'm just a simple man trying to make my way in the universe.
Alright, well, that's fair enough, I'll give him that, but... in general, Jango Fett's just kind of there. He's hired by, Tyrannus, which turns out to be Count Dooku, which I don't know if they touched on that in the movie. I haven't seen that movie in, over a year. But still, Count Dooku's not that good of a villain. He looks menacing. Well, not menacing. He looks cool, I guess. He's kind of there. But, you went from Darth Maul to, Count Dooku, so you're like, all right, well, we got a new villain. What's this guy's goal? Well, he's bringing the Separatists together. Well, what are the Separatists? Well, I don't know. They're just an enemy politician of the Republic. Well, why is that bad? Why am I rooting against him? Because I'm told to root against him. There's no tension with Count Dooku. None of that stuff. Then you see him at the end, of course, meeting Emperor Palpatine. You're like, oh, it's that evil guy. How does no one know that that's Palpatine? Like, everyone, was that an arc, by the way? Was that like a twist when the movies came out in Revenge of the Sith, when they were like, oh, by the way, Sidious is Palpatine and Palpatine is Sidious? Was that an arc? Or not an arc, a twist? Because I don't think it was. Even growing up, I knew it was him. I was like, oh, this is so simple. Look at that. But anyways, then you get to episode 3, and you actually get a good villain. It's not General Grievous. It's Emperor Palpatine. He is just purely an evil guy who, laughs maniacally. He's manipulative. He basically tricks Anakin into becoming to the dark side. I mean, he does villain-like stuff. He electrocutes Yoda. He kills all the young Jedi and everything. He has Anakin do all this evil stuff. That's pretty cool. All the other villains don't really do anything evil. They're just evil because we're told they're evil. General Grievous is also brought in, and I don't even know who the hell he is. He's a general of something, and he has a grievance against somebody, I guess. I don't know. He's just there, and he coughs maniacally or something. It's just weird. And so he's not a good villain, because he dies off really fast, and there's no arc to him. I don't know his motivations, other than that he wants to get a cough drop. Great. Good for him. But overall, there's no really good villains in the prequels. And you get to the sequels, and you have Kylo Ren, who starts off as a good villain. You meet him, you're like, wow, this guy can freeze, bolts in the air. That's cool. Or laser shots. And then you're like, oh, that's really cool. And then, find out he's Han Solo's son. You're like, all right, that's pretty cool too. And then you meet Snoke, and you're like, oh wow, this guy looks pretty bad butt. Let's see what he's gonna do. And then he kind of, dies like a little punk in The Last Jedi. And you're like, all right, well, we still have Kylo Ren, but Kylo Ren has temper tantrums. That's how you say it. And he goes off, and he has a weird love thing with Rey, and it's kind of like, oh, am I supposed to root against this guy? I mean, it's just kind of confused, and you almost sympathize with him. But he's not much of a villain. He's just, for me, a good character. And then you have Captain Phasma, who I don't even know if she's a villain or not. I don't know. I mean, all she's done that I've seen is have people kill villagers, which, yes, that is very bad, and how dare she. But she dies really easy. There's nothing to her. I don't know what her motivations are. What's his name? Hux, the ginger from the new sequels. He could have been a decent villain. He seems like a guy who just wants to be in charge of the First Order. He wants to do what's right, and he wants to control the galaxy. All right, I can understand that. And, he does evil things by destroying the entire Republic. Oh, wow, that's very menacing. Then you get to The Last Jedi, and he's tossed around like a rag doll, and he's just kind of there for comedic relief, but isn't he supposed to be a villain? So that's a problem you have with these Star Wars films. You don't have that many good villains. And if you look at Rogue One, though, I'm not going to lie, Rogue One's got a good villain, Director Krennic. His motivations are pretty obvious. He wants to build the Death Star. He wants to take credit for it. He has rivalries between him and Tarkin. He is a pretty good villain. And he challenges our characters, because not only is there a previous connection with him and Jyn Erso being her father, and he killed her father, or kind of did, I guess, I don't know, kidnapped him, whatever. You have that. Krennic is a good villain. But other than that, you don't have that many good villains with the new Star Wars, or even that of the old Star Wars. Snoke, the reason a lot of people were always like, oh, who's Snoke, is not because we wanted him to be Plagueis or anything, was that it kind of makes no sense that the villains in the original trilogy died out, and out of nowhere, this new villain came out to be. It's like, where'd he come from? So, the problem with Star Wars is you don't have that many good villains. You have a few set, yeah, that's great, but other than that, you don't have that many villains that you're actually interested in, that you understand, and, you understand their arc. Villains are supposed to have some character to it. They're supposed to be the guys who, they're persuasive or something. They trick people into doing the things. They have likable qualities that you understand, or you like. I mean, Vader, you like him because he kills everybody, and he's generally a badass and brings tension. But, villains are convinced they're the good guy. They have a motive. I don't know a lot of the motives for these villains half the time. They're not an idiot. They're not foolish. They're proud. They're challenging the character. They're merciless. I mean, there's something interesting about them, and you don't get a lot of that in the Star Wars villains. At least not in the movies. You get them a lot in the books, the comics, and the shows that come out. But other than that, Star Wars has a villain problem, and it needs to be fixed. Marvel has a villain problem too, but they fixed it with 3 villains. Loki, Michael Jordan, or whatever his name is, from Black Panther, he was a great villain, and Thanos. Thanos is an amazing villain. But other than that, that's it. So we need some good villains in Star Wars. And hopefully in Episode 9 we can get a little better one out of Kylo Ren, but it doesn't seem like that. So one thing Star Wars writers need to do when they go to make a new movie is go, let's make a good villain. Because if they don't, it's going to be really hard to make good movies. But enough rambling from me. Comment your thoughts below. Do you guys think Star Wars has a villain problem, or are we just exaggerating the fact? But anyways, comment your favorite villain of all time. Personally, mine would be the Joker from The Dark Knight. He's amazing, but that's just me. So comment your thoughts below. I'm Star Wars Only. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I will see y'all next time. May the Force be with you, always.